welcome to our last session. And so during this session, we are going to just finish up what we started talking about, time management. As you can see, it has spanned through 3 sessions, and this is really intentional because from the experience that I've had personally and experiences I've had with other people who I have taken through this program, time management is usually what ends up destroying all the plans that they had in mind. So initially, we never used to focus so much on time management. It was a passing phase. We tell them, you need to allocate your time resources properly. But over time, I realized that it was that particular aspect that was really difficult for people to handle. And as a result, now we focus on it more than before. And once again, we normally first build up on the things you have to do so that you understand the importance of managing your time in response to the plans that you have set in mind. So we're going to quickly go through what we did in the previous week. And if you have questions or you have experiences you want to share, feel free to interrupt me and share the experiences with all of us. So I can't re-emphasize this enough. Emma, it looks like the other 2 have dropped off. It's just the 2 of us. Wait for them to come back when Irene is back. So I feel that we cannot re-emphasize this enough because, like I said, the nature of our upbringing for most of us does not emphasize the fact that we have the freedom to choose how we respond to stimulus. We are almost taught how to respond to stimulus, and usually it is in a reactive way. When someone does this, I immediately do this. We divorce the aspect of being human from it. In other words, by being human, we have space between the stimulus and the response, space to become self-aware, space to choose our reactions, to choose our thoughts, to choose our actions, and the independent will to decide or not to decide how to respond to a particular stimulus. And once again, I asked us to continue listening to ourselves because this is going to be a gradual thing. It's not going to change overnight. The only way it can change is if we listen to ourselves, the way we respond to things, the way we do things, and ask ourselves, was I proactive in the way I did that, or was I reactive? Did I give up, or had I tried all my alternatives? If I had, what was the plan B? What was the plan C? Am I doing things because I believe that that is the way I am? Am I doing things because I think they will not allow me to do certain things, or they will allow me to do certain things? So let's keep being proactive in listening to ourselves. Are we reactive or are we proactive? Our plan is, the hope is that we can all eventually become proactive people. The homework I gave you last week, I know I keep telling you to continue with the previous homeworks, but I keep one. Yes?
Miriam, I wanted to ask something. There's something that I've come to realize I struggle with. I think it has something to do with probably raising, or I don't know, background. I seem to, and I've gotten this feedback from some people. It's like I seem to wait for permission. Like you're too scared of even starting or doing something. Like you want an okay from like certain people around, or it's not exactly approval, but I don't know how I can explain it. So I don't know if that counts as that reactive, and it's something that I don't know how to.
Right, and that's an interesting one, and you actually have identified it correctly. Once you feel that you're making a decision depends on somebody giving you permission to go ahead, it may not be approval like you said, but you feel like you need someone to give you permission or someone to tell you to do it, then that is actually being reactive. And what I encourage you to do is to do a root cause analysis. You need, because you've identified what the problem is. You want to be decisive, you want to take action, but you feel like there is something that tells you you need permission to do it. Either someone to tell you to do it or someone to okay you doing it. So that would be the problem. And you need to go down and ask yourself, in really going down to the root, why is it that I feel that I need permission to make a decision or to do certain things? So keep going down the steps of whys and whys until you get to a point where you actually have control. surprisingly, this is doable for every problem that we face. If you go through the whys, you'll actually begin to understand the reason behind that action or inaction, and get down to a point where you are actually in control. So in other words, you break it down until you get to your circle of control, and then at that point you can make a decision of how to begin responding to it. So Emma, does that help a bit?
No, yes, it does. Thank you.
So yeah, so you're actually going to have to sit down and write it. It's going to be a task. Think through it. So that you've identified the problem, which is excellent, and now you're going to find out why that is a problem, what is causing that problem, and just keep going down the steps of whys until the end. Remind me to share with you the tool for a root cause analysis if I don't. So just send me an email and remind me to send it to you. Okay. So the homework that we had was, the homework was practical ways to improve time management skills. We did the first 3 things, and I gave you homework to just go back and be clear about what is on your plate. In other words, I needed you to review your wheel of life and find out what are those the things that need to be on your wheel of life. Do you have everything that needs to be on your wheel of life? In other words, priorities, priorities, and priorities. And then I gave you the assignment to find out what is that one big thing, the one thing that if you were a guaranteed success, 100% success, what would that thing be? That one thing that you would do. Not in a week, not in a month, in your lifetime, what is that one thing that you would want to do? So I hope you've had a chance to work on that. And then also, I gave you an assignment to start working on creating a schedule. Because I remember saying that the things that are most important, the things that are our priorities, end up being in quadrant 2. And we all saw that. They are important, very important, but they're not urgent. And because they're not urgent, everything else takes precedence. Either the series that we've been following, a new one has arrived, the new episode or season, the new season has arrived, you need to watch it. Or the boss has said they need work on their desk by 8 o'clock in the morning, and they keep saying this every week. Or the child is crying, or the exam is already on your case, you really have to do it right now. Or there are lots of emails that are coming in, people are stopping by saying, can we go out, or just wanting to have a conversation. So all those things are happening, and because of that, the other things that should be on top of the list, the items that are in our wheel of life, end up being put on the back burner. And if we don't give them time, if we don't schedule them in our calendars, then we end up not doing them. And I was saying the importance of creating a schedule is that you sort of create a form of urgency. So while we know very well that things on our wheel of life are never urgent unless we leave them too late, if you are proactive and create schedules for them, then it becomes urgent. I'll give you an example. We said in the beginning that we need to think about where we want to be 15 years from now in all the important parts of our lives. But 15 years from now is so far down the road. I mean, if you add 10 years or 15 years to your life right now, you'll even laugh, right? But then I said, we need to break this down to the next 5 years. Where do we need to have reached in our quest for what we want to be 10 to 15 years from now? And then we need to break it down to this year, and then break it down to this month, and then this week. Because when you do that, then you realize you create some kind of urgency. Because you know that if I don't get this done this week, then I'm going to be behind as far as my plan to get into the goal that I want to reach. So that is the importance of creating a schedule. You create urgency for the things that are important, but are normally not urgent. Are we on the same page? Should I proceed? So,
Yes,
so this is, okay. So this was really the homework that I sent you, just re-explaining, and I gave you the synonymity with the loose 10K. If your time is not budgeted, you're going to give your time up to so many things. One thing that I learned when I started budgeting my life, because I used to really love series. Those who have watched Grey's Anatomy, there was Desperate Housewives. There were a number of series, and I really used to love them. Superman, there was that series on young Superman, and I was obsessed. I would do all my daily work very quickly and spend hours watching it until 3 a.m. on some nights. When I was on leave, I would watch it the whole day. But once I started budgeting my time, making the things that are important but not urgent have some kind of schedule, without even trying, these things that used to take up my time went to the back seat. I actually completely stopped watching series and I don't miss them. The only one that I watched recently was a one season series, and even then I budgeted my time and I said one episode every after 2 days after I've finished doing everything else that is on my list. So if you budget your important things, then you realize that all the other things just automatically begin falling to the side. Someone demonstrated something when I was in the university and it really stuck with me. So what this person did was they put dirty water in a glass and then they opened a tap of clean water. And they said, you just look and see what happens to the dirty water as the clean water keeps going in. And we noticed that dirty water will eventually come out of the glass and you'll only be left with clean water. But for a phase there, you will have both the dirty and the clean water mingled together. So really it is a process, but what is important is that you consistently do the things that you want to do, and those things that you find yourself doing will end up eventually coming out of the glass, just like the dirty water in that experiment did. Okay, now we're going to do something that is different. We're going to have a breakout session. I'm going to split you up into groups. I see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups calling in. I know some of you are multiple in your groups, but I'm going to split you up, and in 10 minutes, I want each group to look at these questions. So one, please take note of them. I don't think the breakout session will have the screen visible, so please write them down. So first, I'd like you to review your experience in identifying priorities and creating a schedule. What was your experience doing that homework last week? Then two, I'd like you to review your experience of the month that we have. Really, it's a month and a half now that we've been doing this program, but your experience, how your life has been affected in relation to this program. And please be candid, whether you feel there's been no difference, that is also fine. It is your legitimate response. And then what would you have liked to be addressed in this program? What help would you like from Care 360 in the future? Like I said, this is our last session. Do you want any future sessions? And if you do, what is the nature of sessions that you would like? And then what did you not like about the program that we have done? So I'm going to break you up into 2 groups. And then I would like you to discuss, have someone who is going to lead the group and then is going to present to us when we come back. Okay. So I'm going to spread you into 2 groups. Okay. Okay, so Irene, Bridget, and Paula are going to be in one group, and then Emma and Simonette will be in another group. Let me try to do some changing here. I want to do something. I'm going to put Irene in the same group as Emma because I want to. Okay, so that is it. So I'm going to open the rooms now, and then please, you'll not be able to hear from the people in the other groups. It will just be the people in that group. And then automatically in 10 minutes, it will bring you back here, okay? Any questions before we go? Any questions before we go into the groups? Okay, so off you go. I hope you're all in your groups. You're not in your groups yet? Esther, you're welcome. You've been assigned, people are working in groups, and you'll soon automatically go to that group. I've divided up people into groups. Don't worry, automatically it's going to move you to the group. Esther, don't worry, it's going to move you to the group and your siblings. It may take a while, but it will move you, and then we are going to come back to the class. If it fails, don't worry, they have 5 more minutes to go. Esther and Carl, don't worry, if it fails to take you to the group, maybe it's because it's late, but in 5 minutes, the rest will be back. Esther, if you see something asking you to join a group, please accept it. Look at your screen. There may be something asking you to join a group. John and Esther, we have started and divided people into groups. Your screen should be asking you, telling you to join a group now. I don't know if it's telling you that. If it is, please accept it. I've divided people into groups and they're doing some group assignments. They should be done in about 4 minutes. Do you see the request on your phone or on your screen?
No.
I wonder why, and I've assigned you there. Nothing?
Not yet.
You may have to wait for the others to come back because I've set you there. I don't know why you can't. So nothing on your screen?
No.
Okay, you may just have to wait for them to come back because I've assigned you to the 2 groups.
It has come now.
Okay, then join the group. John, have you got yours? Not yet? John, not yet?
Like, what should come?
There's going to be something telling you to join a group. I've divided people into
Join
groups.
breakout room.
Yeah, huh? Yeah, join breakout
Is it?
room, yeah. Yes. I see people are coming back now. The rest are still in. They'll be done in about 28 seconds now. Okay, group 2 is done. Let's wait for the group 1 people to come. They're coming back now. Okay. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you're still hearing me.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Yes, we
excellent.
can.
Excellent. So in the next about 5 minutes, let's have each group present. We'll start with group 1. What you just share with us what your session went like. So first of all, before group 1 presents, what did you people think about having the breakout session? Well, is it useful? Did you find it useful?
I think it was very useful. We can, usually how you ask us questions and people are mute. Then you have to call us out. But here you forcefully had to share, and we could be honest,
Okay, that's great to know. I keep trying to find out how to make this better, and I just came across the use of breakout sessions using the regular kind of Zoom, because I'm not paying for the more expensive one. I'm paying for the second tier. So it's great. Unfortunately, we've discovered it late, but I'm glad that you found it useful. Okay, let's have group 1 present. Group 1.
Is that ours, mine and Irene?
No, Irene, Emma, and John, you're in group 2. But if you're ready, you can present.
We'll go second. Please allow me to attend.
Paula, who was the leader in your group?
Okay, I think it was me, although we were not ready, but I'll just present what we had.
That's okay.
Yeah. So question 1 was asking us to review our experience, identifying priorities and creating a schedule. And we found that most of us were energized and had so much enthusiasm at the beginning of the process. We were so eager to find out more about ourselves, what our priorities are. And it was someone called it an adventurous activity, as they were trying to as they were thinking about all the different things in their lives and trying to categorize them and finally pinpoint the priorities. And then someone also said that the assignment you gave us at the beginning, where we had to identify our goals, made it a little easier for us to know what our priorities were. Then as we were creating the schedule, for most of us, it was hard. It was difficult. It was difficult to know where to start and to know what to do. But luckily, some people got a breakthrough. Someone told us it's still a bit difficult, but he's adjusting as he tries to integrate it into his current life. He's already working on it currently. Then our experience during the month of August in relation to this program, still people said the session, these sessions have been fun. They have helped us learn a lot about ourselves. They've been very eye-opening. August has been one of the, this is from me personally, August has been one of my most productive months during this whole lockdown. And thanks goes to this session because it helped keep us on track. And someone said, unfortunately, her phone was restarted, so she lost the phone tracking. But I believe she's going to continue with it. And then what would we have liked to be addressed? I think we'd have liked to be taught how to do the root cause analysis, because you've told us that we need to identify the problems, the things that might be holding us back. So we would like to learn how we actually do the root cause analysis, because you might know the problems, but we don't know how to go back and see where it all comes from, and then in a way find a solution to all that. Then what help would we like from Care 360 in the future? Someone said they'd like help in decision making. I think that entails how to best use your priorities to make decisions. And also I'd like help, this is from me personally. I'm trying to enter a certain mentorship program where we mentor people from high school. So I'd also like help on that, how to go about with mentoring other people. Then what did you not like about the program? Everyone loved the program. Everyone loved the program. The only issues they had were network issues. That was the only challenge. And they also asked if we can have a face-to-face meeting later on. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And that's it from us.
Thank you very much, Group 1. Very useful feedback, and I'm going to respond, but let's first hear from the second group. Thank you very much, Paula, for sharing on behalf of your team.
You're welcome.
Hi, sorry about earlier. I had to attend to a little one here.
It's okay.
One, I experience identifying priorities and creating a schedule. We found that we're able to focus on personal growth, on even certain aspects of our life, like our spiritual growth, and we're able to use time more usefully rather than, again, we found out rather than spending it on maybe TV or on the phone. There was also something that we discovered that we could accomplish, and this was from me, so that I realized that I could achieve certain good things that I had set out to do. You know, those things that you say, one day I'll get around to doing this. Yeah, so now that you were dealing with them as priorities, say maybe looking up for investment advice or looking up certain information that would help you, or getting certain things, I found that it was now attained very easily
Okay.
than it would have been as just an action that gets thrown to the back. Scheduling, let's at least Irene is already very organized, so she runs on a schedule. So she found it was easier, but the experience, but what she also mentioned was that now she found that she can maybe be able to schedule for long term. What she's in the past, she's been scheduling, but for short term. And I think also for me, so I plan day to day, maybe short tick off, short items to tick off. But for me, and it's a work in progress, is that now you need to inculcate the aspects from your wheel of life intentionally into your schedule, not just let items drop into your day. Yeah, so for Irene, it was more of learning how to schedule for long term. Our experience of August in relation to the program, it's been very eye-opening. It's been very, very enlightening. It's been a very good experience. What would we have liked to be addressed? Nothing really. It seems like what we both agree that it's been very good and intense. What help we would like from Care 360 in the future? Possibly some follow-up sessions, some sessions on career guidance, work-life balance, handling also family. Those would have been, that would be good help, or maybe that speaks more to the above, what would have liked addressed. What we did like about the program, nothing. We only agreed on having to wake up very early on Saturday morning after a very hectic week. Yeah, so, and for me, the distractions really from the little ones.
Right. Thank you very much, Group 2. Excellent feedback. Thank you both groups for sharing. Personally, what I would have liked from the program, if only I had known about this breakout session earlier on. But it's a work in progress. Like I said, I'm reading about it. But most especially to appreciate you guys who have accepted to be what they call beta testers. This program before COVID was an in-person program. But this is the first time I was trying to move the curriculum from in-person to online, and so that's why I didn't charge for it, because you were paying me. You should have actually been charging me for letting me use you as beta testers. So I really appreciate that component. And because you are beta testers, I guess you've missed some of the benefits, like having the in-person discussions. But at least today we've been able to have that. And my intention is that in future, when all this COVID dies down, we should actually meet in person, because what I understand, because I have gone through this, what I teach in Care 360, for me, it is now a lifestyle, but it's taken me so many years. When I tell people I began to do this when I was in primary school, they are actually surprised. But it has taken me so many years to actually form what I am doing now and to become the person I am through what I'm teaching. So I know that this is not just being in this class for the 6 sessions is not going to be enough. You are going to need support going forward. And normally what I do is I have follow-up sessions to just find out how are you doing now, what have you been able to change, where do you need help, so that it's an ongoing process. And it's excellent if you form a cohort, you're a team that has been through it together and you continue on the journey together. So this is not going to be the end of it. Let me admit, Bridget. Paula asked about the root cause analysis session. If you guys want, I can organize one more session that is next Saturday. That should be the absolute last one. And we'll go through the root cause analysis. I will explain it, teach it, and then I'll have you into breakout sessions so you can actually do it, because this is one of the things that needs you to do it. So I need you to send me a message in the chat so that I can know how many people are interested in having that one more session next week to do the root cause analysis. Yes, so we've talked about the face-to-face. So one group said they would want more, actually both groups, you talked about the areas where you need help. So what we do is that normally I have multiple groups. So there are some programs I have where we unpack the wheel of life. So some groups are just focusing on one slice. For instance, the program I have on parenting, we just go to that one slice. So this is usually for people who are parents, of course. It can, those who want to be parents can also join, but it's mainly for those who are actively parenting. And we just focus the whole program on just that particular slice. And we break it up into, we create slices out of that slice, and we address each of the different areas in that. For the young people, I'm planning in October, mid to late October, we are going to just pull out the slice of your academics, and it's called independent learning, and we work on independent learning, hands-on experiences on that. So this program, the first one is usually a broader thing to look at every aspect of your life. It is okay, you can do only this and you survive it. You can actually survive the rest of your life on just this. But for those who want to go deeper, we usually take off one slice and we just have a program concentrating on that. Some of it is just long-term planning in one area. So like personal growth, we just go to personal growth and we work on personal growth for 6 to 8 sessions. So we have more detailed programs, and I'll let you know each time we are running a particular program. Paula talked about training to be a mentor. Get in touch with me. We do that as well. And we can train you to become a mentor of other people, because we lack mentors in this country. Career mentors, like Emma said, we need career guidance. We lack mentors in this country, and hopefully through Care 360, we can develop mentors. We have developed some, and I know we can develop more. Okay, so we are time bad, but we're going to continue. So last week, so I have tools in Care 360 that are supposed to help you plan your week and plan your days. But intentionally, I didn't give them to you last week. There's something we believe in called the school of experience. We like people to go do things the hard way first, because when you've done something the hard way, then you appreciate it when you're given a tool that makes it easier. So because everyone has spent the week trying to put their wheel of life into a weekly planner, monthly planner, daily planner, you know that it actually takes a lot of work. Now, this tool that we use usually makes it easier. I also use it myself. At the beginning of every week, I look at my wheel of life, and then I use this tool to plan it. So when you look at the weekly planner over here, sorry. So I break down my tasks into using the weekly planner. So I have the first section is the big plans, the SMART big project tasks. SMART, remember that the T stands for time bound. We talked about scheduling. So they are specific, they are measurable, they are attainable, they are realistic, and they are time bound. So I decide which are my big tasks for the week. And these tasks for me always come out of my wheel of life. And then I look at the next week. So I'm planning for this week, but I'm also keeping in mind the next week. You don't want to end this week and have no plan for the following week. So I also find that when I have things already set for next week, it forces me to do the things that I've decided to do this week. And then when I'm done with that, I have what I call quick wins. These are small tasks that have a big impact. For instance, Emma mentioned beginning to think about investing. So if my big project for that week is to start my investment plan, for instance, a quick win would be getting the contact of someone who is already in that field, or making a phone call to a company that does investments. I hope you're getting the point. So the quick wins are things that are contributing to your big projects of the week, but it's very quickly to do. Within a few minutes to 1 hour, you would have been able to do it. For students, for instance, if you're struggling, let's say with physics, and your big task this week is to finish, let's say, light, the topic of light in physics, a quick win would just be, let's say, understanding how convex mirrors work. That you can do in less than within 1 hour. So those are some of the things that I call quick wins. And then filler tasks are those things that I need to do that take within 30 minutes, those can be done. And most of the time, it can be things that are related to your other work, or small things that you can get done within 30 minutes or less. If you look at the task and it takes more than 30 minutes, then it is not a filler task. It actually begins to take up a lot of your time. And then in this area, I put my future tasks and ideas. Remember the concept of the open loop. Many times as you're planning, there are all these other things that are running and going on in your mind, and I normally write those in the area that I call future tasks or ideas. They're an important idea, but they are not for this week. I know they are good, I have to do it, but it's not something I should focus on this week, so I write it to get it out of my mind in the future tasks, but also to help me remember and not forget it in future. And then delegating or getting help. And we're going to talk about that in detail, so I'm going to leave that for now. And then the fifth one are personal tasks. And if you look at the items that are in personal tasks, these are things that very easily fall into quadrant number 3. They are things that tend to be sometimes distractions. So it's important that you write them out in there. You know that these are the distractions that I'm going to focus on this week. And so you schedule them. And once you've done that, then it's easy to ignore the other distractions that are coming in, because once again, you don't have a loose 1 hour hanging out there. You know that everything has been assigned to time, and these distractions are the ones that are allowed. Even your series, if you like watching series, you have it listed in there. You say, okay, this season is out, I'm going to watch episode 1 and 2 this week. In other words, it is already assigned time. Then when you go to the next one, which is the daily planner. Now the daily planner helps you to break down your activities into a day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis. So you have on top, my top 3 priorities of the week. Remember you had 5 over there, but now you're breaking them into your top 3. Remember how I kept telling you what is that? I first told you to make your wheel of life, and then I asked you what are your big rocks, and then what is that one big thing? So you always have to keep remembering you have priorities, but in a given week or in a given day, there's only so much that you can focus on. So you have your top 3 priorities in order. And then on Monday, what is your big task? What are the quick wins and your delegations in there? So you do that for the whole week. So I'm going to ask you to spend time and work on it this week. Maybe next week we can quickly have a session to see how it went and if you have any questions. But I'll also send you details on how to complete it in the email that I send for the week. Okay, any questions before we move on to the next one?
Question for me on filler tasks.
Yes.
I didn't get those clearly.
Okay, so filler tasks are things that you need to do to meet your objectives, right? Your big tasks, but then they take within 30 minutes to do, like making a phone call. Like, so you want to talk to this investment person, you know that this phone call is definitely going to take less than 30 minutes. So you make the phone call and you just fill it up in there. So those are things that are important to do, but they take a very short time to do. So you can quickly, it helps you to get more things done within a short space of time. So the emphasis is going to be that there are things that you're going to need to focus on and you're going to spend a lot of time on them, but there are smaller things that you can do in between. For instance, you finished we're going to talk about deep work today. You finished focusing on this task that took you 30 minutes or 1 hour. And then in 15 minutes, I can quickly do something else. So you spend time doing that. Respond to an important email that can be done within less than 30 minutes. So there are those that are filling the gap. But Emma, I'm going to send you details by email. And if you don't understand, then please, you're welcome to send me an email or when we meet on Saturday to talk about that. Okay. So I'm also going to give you this. It's called the not to do list. Like I said in the beginning, many times we start off with really good intentions. We have our plans. We create the weekly and daily planner, but there are things that have become habits, are distractions. So it's really important that you identify those ways in which you're sabotaging yourself. And you're going to find that these are items that fall a lot in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. So in this table, you're going to list my good intentions. So these are the things that I really want to do. Okay, you write them down. And then you write, this is the way that I sabotage myself. And over the last 1.5 months, I'm sure you've been able to see what your problem is. Do you reach out for your phone every time? Are you responding to emails that are not urgent? What are the things that you're doing that distract you from the good intentions that you have. And then you're going to write and say, I will stop, and you write them down. I will stop reaching out for my phone. I will stop putting my phone in a place that is easily accessible. I will stop responding to emails that are not urgent. So the things that you will stop doing, okay? I will stop staying in bed late, staying in bed for an extra 1 hour when I know that there are things I have to do. And then I will instead, so what are those things you're going to do when you stop doing the things that you're doing to sabotage yourself? Well, once again, remember, it's really important that when you remove something that is negative in your life, it's really important that you replace it with something that is positive, because otherwise, by nature, you'll pick on something else that is not very productive. Please, if you have a question or a contribution, unmute yourself and interrupt me. Don't wait for me to ask you. Okay, today we're not, time is running out, but I'm going to just quickly go through the remaining things that are practical ways to improve on our time management skills. Item number 4, which remember last week we did 3, so this is item number 4, the multitasking trap. Especially ladies, there's a common saying that women are good multitaskers, but you have to ask yourself, what is the difference between multitasking and multifocusing? Many times we do things that require us to focus, and we're doing them at the same time. At the end of the day, the result of what we have done is substandard work. We end up not doing well in everything that we set up to do. What I do for myself and what I encourage my mentees and people that I coach in Care 360 is to adopt a combination that is called effective prioritizing and deep work. We've gone through prioritizing since we started this program, and you've become experts at that. But the other concept is called deep work. And what do I mean by deep work? Deep work means you take a chunk of time, minimum 30 minutes, and you focus on one thing. You just sit there and focus on one thing, whatever it is that you're doing. You spend at least 30 minutes doing only that. When you do that, you realize that you begin to be present in the work, because if you've noticed, when you sit down to do something important, the first like 5 minutes, you're not yet in it. You're just settling down, getting things out of your mind and stuff like that. But after sometimes you settle in and things begin to flow. So I encourage you to do deep work, minimum 30 minutes, focusing just on one thing. You have your daily to-do list, but pick up that one thing and focus on it for a minimum of 30 minutes. Sometimes I go up to 2 hours, and if you're able to do that, please go up to 2 hours. And then when you've finished your 30 minutes or 2 hours, put that thing aside and let it rest. Those of us who like cooking, we say let it marinate and move on to something else. For instance, let me talk about students, since we have students in here. You pick up a topic in math and you say, I'm only going to work on these topics. Let's say it's matrices. And in the next 1 hour to 2 hours, all you're going to do is matrices. Forget about everything else. Do only that. And when you're done, put it aside and let it rest. The reason for that is that scientifically it has been shown that once you've spent deep time doing deep work and then you leave it for some time, your brain begins to compartmentalize it and to help you even understand it better. So that when you come back to it later, you'll find that you actually have a deeper understanding of the concept. So that is the reason why you want to concentrate on it for an extended period of time and then put it aside for a while. Now, when you put it aside for a while, you can move to your next item where you're going to do deep work. So that is the kind of quote unquote multitasking that I find works for me and that I encourage people to do. Prioritize and then have chunks of deep concentration on each item. Is there any question on that before I move on? Okay, if there's no question, the next one is the next item is overcoming procrastination. Most of us suffer from procrastination. But if you think about the things you procrastinate over, you realize that the things you procrastinate are usually things that are in quadrant number 2. You remember quadrant number 2? It actually has the items that are in your wheel of life. And Emma just shared with us this morning that she realized that now that she's intentional, those things that she used to say she would do some other time in the future have come to the forefront. And So procrastination really just means putting to the future what you need to be doing today. So we normally procrastinate things that are in quadrant 2. So we need to, I want us to get to a point where the only things that we are procrastinating are things that are in quadrant 4 and some things that are in quadrant 3. So those series that you love watching, social media, hanging out for extensive hours with people just discussing really things that are not of real consequence. I want us to get to a point where those are the things that we can procrastinate. You can say, you know what, this series has come out, I really like it, but I'm going to watch it next week. Instead, I will do something else this week. So that is what our objective is. The question I need everybody to ask themselves, and this goes back to the root cause analysis, which I've seen most of you want a session on, is to ask yourself why. If you look at your wheel of life and there's something that you need to be doing, but you feel you cannot do, or you keep postponing, you need to sit down and ask yourself, why am I procrastinating? Do a root cause analysis and find out the real reason why you are procrastinating doing something in this area. I had a coaching session with a lady for whom it was in her wheel of life, she had relationship with her parents. And when she unpacked it, the real problem was a relationship with her mother. And we talked about it and realized that the problem went back years earlier. We did what we call the life map. And we found that the problem went back many years earlier. And that is why even now she was procrastinating making that phone call to her mom. And then we broke it down and found that, at the end of the day, she was afraid of rejection. And that is something that she is within her area of control. And we began to work out a process of overcoming that problem. So when you find that you're procrastinating something, then you need to think about the why. Students, you find that you're procrastinating reading a certain topic, you need to ask yourself, why am I procrastinating that particular topic? I'll give you an example. My work, I do a lot of research in my work. And in research, we need to write proposals and get funding for it. Now, I realized that I found it hard to write proposals, and I always used to procrastinate when there was a deadline. But when I sat down and did a root cause analysis, I realized that what was keeping me from doing it is that the people who fund our proposals need an excellent proposal at the end of the day. It has to be perfect. And so I was worried that my work would not be as perfect as that. And so I asked myself, what can you control? What I could control was to just begin writing. And there's a concept for those who do writing, who are writers, there's a concept called the shitty first draft. In other words, you start by writing as if no one is going to read it. Don't care about spellings, punctuations, the order of things, just write. And so once I began to do that, I realized that it's easy for me to begin to work on these projects. I just start wherever it is. And at the end of the day, I finished in time, and it is actually a really good piece of work. So what helped me was the root cause analysis to understand why I was procrastinating something that was in my second quadrant. Any question or contribution? Okay, if not, I will move on. One thing that I know you've experienced is that procrastination leads to chronic stress. We talked about the open loop phenomenon. When you're procrastinating something, your brain knows that you have something that you need to get done. And for as long as you're not working on that, your brain is going to keep stressing you. You're going to begin to have headaches, waking up in the middle of the night for what you think is unknown reasons. You're going to find that you can't concentrate on anything else that you're doing. So in other words, you're beginning to go through stress. And the reason you're stressed is simply because of procrastination. And that leads us to our practical way, number 6. Dealing with stress. Stress is in quadrant 1. Remember what was in quadrant 1? Things that are urgent and things that are important. Once you're stressed, you need to deal with it because it's a quadrant 1 item. And if we don't deal with items in quadrant 1, we can't do anything else. Remember, we gave the example of a baby crying. One of the people attending this session is Emma. Emma has a toddler. And when the toddler comes to bother her, unless she addresses what the toddler wants, she can't even concentrate on what we are learning. So quadrant 1 items need to be addressed. If right now electricity went off, like it just happened at my place, I had to address it. I had to find a place to sit, which wasn't the house. You see that I'm looking very much darker today. I had to find a place to sit and another source of internet which wasn't connected to electricity. So I had to deal with it immediately. And stress is the same. When you're stressed, you need to stop and deal with it. And I found that these 7 steps of dealing with stress work for me very well. So first of all, I have to make the stress real. You know, if you've gone through stress, you know that a lot of things are just running around in your mind. You actually feel like you're running mad. Voices are going on in your mind. Deadlines are buzzing around in your mind. I found that it helps for me to sit down, open my journal in a plain page that has nothing. I don't want the stress of other things. And I just write down, what is it that is actually stressing me? And I write all of them down. Sometimes you'll find that it's just one thing, but the voices are so many in your mind that you think there are 20. So the first thing is to visualize what the problem is. And I do that by writing it down. Then when I have written it down, then I actually know I have a picture of what I need to deal with. And then the next thing I do is to categorize them in the 4 quadrants. What among these items is in quadrant 1? If it is if it's already 6 p.m. today and it is something my boss wants tomorrow morning, that is in quadrant 1. It is a stressor, it's in quadrant 1, I need to deal with it. What among those things are in quadrant 2? What is in quadrant 3 and what is in quadrant 4? Then once I have done that, then I know what I need to address. Automatically, I know that things that are in quadrants 3 and 4, I can put them on the side, on the back burner and let them wait for another day. Now, after I have done that, I look at the items in quadrants 1 and quadrants 2 that I'm left with that are causing me stress. And I go back to our 3 circles. Remember them? What were they? Can we have someone tell us what they were? Queen? Queen, what were the 3 circles? You've forgotten? Bridget, what were the 3 circles? Unmute yourself. Okay, let's have anyone tell us what were the 3 circles. We need to remember this. This needs to be a lifestyle.
And control, concern, and influence.
Exactly. Control, influence, and concern.
The 3 circles.
The 3 circles.
Hello.
Yes.
The 3
Yes.
circles are concern, sense of influence.
Yes, Bridget? Okay, so they are control, which is the innermost, influence, which is the second layer, and then the outer layer is concern. So I look at the stressors that I have left, the ones that are in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, and I classify them according to those quadrants. And then once I do that, then I know what to do about it. Now, after I have done that, I think of the SWOT analysis. Remember, we dealt with the SWOT analysis. What are my superpowers? What are my super tools? What are my strengths and the opportunities that I have? What are my weaknesses and what are the threats, the things that are trying to prevent me from actually being able to do these things that are stressing me? And once you have those laid out for each of the areas that are stressing you, suddenly you realize life is really easy. Your strengths, you may find that you're actually able to sit up and work late, or you may find that you're a kind of person who would just rather keep that until tomorrow morning, get up early and work on it. What are the opportunities? Can you share this burden with somebody else? If an exam is approaching and you hadn't read that topic and that is stressing you, do you know someone else who is able to discuss that with you? That is an opportunity. Where am I weak? What can I do about the weakness? If I don't know the topic, or if my boss has asked me to work on something that I can't handle, can I read about it? Can I call up someone? What are the threats? What are those things that are keeping me from doing these things that are stressing me? And after you're done with that, then create an action plan. Start with quadrant 1 and then quadrant 2. Because once again, things in quadrant 1 must be dealt with if you're going to function efficiently in other areas. So create your action plan, keeping in mind the fact that the circles in which they belong and your SWOT analysis. When you've done creating your action plan, then allocate your resources. And what do I mean by resources? Allocate your time. What are you going to do when? Allocate your emotional energy, because some of the things that stress us actually require emotional input. So am I going to spend my emotional energy on this item or on that item? Am I going to divide it equally? At what time am I going to do it? If it's an emotional stressor, you can decide to do that later on in the day before you are going home to rest, or you can do it first thing in the morning so that you can get it out of the way, but you need to make the decision. Where am I going to put my physical energy? Where am I going to put my money? Remember, on week 1, we said this program is actually a personal strategic plan, creating a personal strategic plan. And resource allocations is extremely important when you're developing a strategic plan. So you're looking at your time, your emotional energy, your physical energy, your money. Where are you going to place it in the things that are stressing you? And after you've done all that, just take a break. Just get up and do something that is not related to any of these stressors. Even if it is a deadline that is on your case, just get up from your desk or from wherever and take a breather. You may just get out and take a short walk, or just look out the window, make yourself a cup of tea, go out for ice cream, do something that is different, have a conversation with somebody else, just do something that is completely different. Why am I saying you should do this? It gives your brain time to sort out the things you've been writing, to organize them in a way, so that when you come back, you're now more focused and ready to deal with what you're going through. Once again, remember the things that you do to relieve your stress should be healthy. So there are people who do comfort eating. You go and eat a whole tub of ice cream instead of 1 or 2 scoops, or go and drink a whole bottle of whiskey. So you need to make sure that they are healthy things. The last one is delegation and outsourcing. So in many of the time management programs I have attended and the ones that I've read about, they talk about delegation, the things you should delegate, the things you should outsource. So companies use the term outsourcing, and since we are looking at ourselves as companies, this is also outsourcing. Delegation simply means getting someone else to do some of your tasks. So you looked at your list, these are the things you have to do. Then you realize that there are things that you can have somebody else do in order to create for yourself more time to do some other things. But the general problem that I have noticed in most of these programs and the books that you're going to read about delegation and time sourcing, they simply tell you to get someone else to do something that you're supposed to do. So give it to somebody else to do. At the end of the day, you just make sure that they are doing it correctly. But what I want you to know is that we need to be wise about what we decide to delegate. And because of that, I'll tell you a story, and it's related to those 2 computers that you see. There is the one brand called Asus and one brand called Dell. Which one is the most popular brand? Which one do you know more about? If I told you to buy, if I gave you money, Dell. So Emma, if I gave you money to buy a laptop, which of the 2 would you buy? Which of these 2 would you buy?
Dell.
You would buy Dell. Why? Why?
Because it's recommended as a very strong brand in this market, at least.
Okay, so it is recommended as a very strong brand. But I'm going to tell you a story that is going to surprise you. I don't know if anyone knows this story. So Dell is an American company. So what they do is to create computers. And as you know, computers are made of many different parts. There are some parts that are minor, and some like the motherboard, which are the major parts of the computer. Some like the covering of the computer are very minor, anyone can do it. So many years ago, a company that was in Asia approached the senior executive of Dell, and they asked them to allow them to make the simpler parts of their computer. Basic things like the cover or a few connections, or, and Dell was like, okay, that sounds good. And the company in Asia told them that we are going to do this at 20%, at only 20% of what it's costing you right now to produce these parts in your company. And when Dell sat down in their strategy, they realized that this was an excellent offer. I mean, reducing the cost of production by 80% of these parts of the computer. So they allowed this company in Asia to begin making those basic parts, keyboard cover. A few years later, the same company came back to Dell and said, you know what? Why don't we also begin to make another component, the adapters, the sockets, the adapters of your computer and the cables. Those are very basic things. We can do it also at 20% of what you're spending right now to do it yourselves. Once again, the board of Dell sat and they're like, this is excellent. We are reducing the cost of production by another 80%. So they handed over that component. And until one year, ASUS came to them and said, do you mind? So this company in Asia was called ASUS, by the way. So ASUS came to them and said, you know, we can actually produce your motherboard. The motherboard is really the heart of the computer. Without the motherboard, the computer can't work. So they had now worked on the batteries. They were now creating the batteries, the ports, the keyboards, the cover. And they asked Dell for permission to create the motherboard of the computer at 20% of the cost that Dell was spending creating it themselves. And once again, the board of Dell sat and they're like, amazing. And they allowed ASUS to begin making the motherboard. And this happened for a number of years until one time, ASUS, the board of ASUS got in touch with the board of Dell and said, you know what, we are ending this relationship. We are now beginning to do our own things. And guess what happened? ASUS began to produce their own computers with the technology that they had learned from Dell and had mastered. Now, because ASUS had been doing this work for Dell for so many years, Dell was no longer investing in people who could create the computers. So it got to a point where Dell, and up to now, by the way, when you see a Dell computer, it is really just the word Dell that belongs to the American company Dell. Everything inside a Dell computer is an ASUS computer. And ASUS is now producing their own computers as well that are cheaper than the Dell computer because their executives are not as expensive as the Americans. And so ASUS is actually has taken over the market from Dell. So that forced Dell to make a huge strategic change in their direction. And Dell's main product right now is not desktop computers and laptops. They're now instead spending most of their time producing large servers, computer servers. They lost a huge market because of a delegation decision. So this is a story that resonates so loudly with me. And I tell people, when you're delegating, do not delegate your future. I just want you to tell yourself that. Do not delegate your future. And your question is, what is my future? Your wheel of life contains your future. When you're delegating your time, you're delegating your tasks, do not delegate items that are within your wheel of life, because that is your future. When you delegate your future, then you've given somebody else your future. A certain man shared his experience. He said he got an assistant to help him. He was able to afford an assistant. And so his assistant was responsible for remembering birthdays of his wife, anniversaries, and the children's birthdays. And so every time a birthday came around, his assistant would simply buy the white flowers, send it, organize birthday parties for his children, and things like that. And when the time came, he realized he had no relationship with his wife and his children. He didn't really know what they liked anymore because the person he had delegated, his assistant, is the one who had been doing these roles for him. Do not delegate things that are on your wheel of life because that is your future. When I'm having sessions with parents, I normally tell them, because you know there's this concept these days that goes around of quality time and not quantity time. And I tell them I really don't agree with that. The amount of time you spend with your children is really important because children are not ready to learn when we are ready to teach them. Children are ready to learn at their own time. And as parents, we need to be there when our children are ready to learn. If your children are spending more time away from you than with you, you need to ask them who is teaching them at the time when they are ready to learn. That is a take-home question for those of us who are parents. For those who are students, I remember when I was in primary school, there's a time when I was becoming quite lazy and it was showing in my performance. So one day I came home. On the way home, I was coming back home from school, but my dad was driving. And I told him that, you know, today my finger was hurting, my little finger was hurting, so I gave someone else to copy my notes for me. And when I got home, I got a beating for that. And I didn't understand why. But he told me, you know what, when you begin to make people copy your notes for you, you are not learning, you're letting people study for you. So I'm coming back to students. There are many of us who wait for end of term and copy notes from another student in class. We expect, when there's assignment that has been given to a group, we don't do our part and we wait for everyone else to do their parts. Even in the workplace, we have a group assignment, we don't do our part and we ride on the victory of others. What are you delegating? Are we delegating our future? Just remember, when you're delegating your tasks, do not delegate your future. Is there any question on that? Or any contribution? So remember, every time you see a Dell computer and an ASUS computer, remind yourself that Dell delegated their future. And the people they delegated their future to ended up taking over what was meant to have been rightly theirs. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to quickly go through. Yes, Emma?
No, sorry, I know we are out of time, but it's just something that's amusing me here. I actually own an ASUS. But the time when I got it, I have a neighbor who's an IT specialist, and he was telling me how it's such an inferior brand to the likes of Dell and what that are in the market. So now that I know this story, it's very, you can imagine how amused I am.
Exactly. And people think it's inferior because it is cheaper, and they don't realize why it is cheaper. The people of ASUS essentially were paid by Dell to master the process of developing a laptop. And most of these electronics are expensive because the companies that produce them have to pay their research and development team, the people who come up with these concepts, and those people are very expensive. Now, ASUS essentially was paid by Dell to learn these things. And because of that, ASUS can charge very cheaply for their computers. And also, ASUS is producing it in a cheaper country where the cost of human resource is cheaper, so it can be cheaper. But inside every Dell is actually an ASUS. Everything inside the Dell is actually an ASUS. So that is something good to remember. They sold their future, and if you have an ASUS computer, good for you. Okay. So let's quickly go through monitoring and evaluation. The good thing about the way I organize this program is that by the time you get to your monitoring and evaluation, you actually know what to do. Monitoring and evaluation is really about measuring results. And the power of measuring results is summarized in these 5 bullets. The first one says, if you don't measure results, you cannot tell success from failure. If you don't stop to check how you're doing, then you can't tell how you're doing because you don't know. So let's say you're walking. If you don't stop to look back, you don't know how far you have come. So you don't know if you're going fast enough or if you need to make a difference. The second one is, you cannot see success. If you cannot see success, you cannot reward it. You know, it's nice to reward ourselves when we have done something good. So you've decided that I'm going to be saving a certain amount of money every month. And you find, so if you're not keeping tabs of how much money you're putting aside, then you won't know and you won't be able to reward it. You won't be able to celebrate your wins. Then if you cannot reward success, you're probably rewarding failure. Maybe you're taking yourself out for a drink with the money that you should have been saving. Or you are you're performing as a student, you have the capacity to get an A or a distinction, and you're getting a credit because you're not monitoring how you're performing. And then you're celebrating your C, and yet actually you are able to get a distinction. Then if you cannot see success, you cannot learn from it. Remember, an example I'll give you is the graphing of your performance in controlling the usage of your phone. When you see that you're improving, then it is easy for you to actually continue improving. You look back and realize, I did A, B, C, and D to help me improve, so I can actually continue doing that to get even better. And then if you cannot recognize failure, you cannot control it. Remember at the beginning of this program, when we talked about phone tracking, if I'd asked you to tell me how much time you spend on your phone in a day or in a week, most people would have given me a number like 2 hours. And the fact is, because we were not monitoring our usage, we were not able to recognize that there was a problem, and therefore we were not able to correct it. But now that we are intentional and we actually know that there's a failure, we have a failure, we have now begun to actively make a correction in that particular failure. And that works with every area in your circle of life. So monitoring and evaluation is part of what they call the plan, do, and study and act cycle. Some of you are familiar with this. So planning, we have already spent a lot of time in the last 1.5 months planning what is important. We have spent a lot of time coming up with actions we are going to take in order to focus on what is important. And now monitoring and evaluation is focused on studying. Studying means we are going to review and see how far we have come. What did we plan to do? What was our plan? What actions did we plan? How have we done so far? Some of the actions that we created, have been excellent. We can continue that way, or we can improve on them. Some of them maybe were not good. We can make a change. In some areas where we were unable to take off, we can make a change, right? So we study that, and then we make a change, and then we act, either by continuing the way we were going, by making improvements, or by stopping some of the things that we shouldn't have been doing. And then finally, what are the vital components of a personal monitoring and evaluation plan? The first one is to look at the scope of monitoring and evaluation. And you realize that we already did that. By looking at the scope, a company is going to look at the departments that it has to perform monitoring and evaluation in. And by us looking at the components, creating components in our wheel of life, we were actually creating the scope of our monitoring and evaluation. After creating the scope, you need to look at the current performance. Where am I? And when we looked at that pizza, remember, when we looked at that pizza, we realized there were some slices that were complete, some that were a little bit eaten, some that were almost completely eaten. And what helps us to understand our current performance is by looking at our goal. Where do we want to be? Where do you want to be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, at the end of this year, at the end of this month? As far as that is concerned, where do you fall? And when you have your goal clearly in mind, so you know you have your scope, you have the goal for each of the areas in the scope, then you can tell what your current performance is. And once you have that as your baseline, that is what you're going to keep using for your monitoring and evaluation. And when I ask you to have a daily meeting with yourself, your daily prayer time or your daily quiet time, you actually are doing, on top of planning your actions, you actually are doing a daily monitoring and evaluation. You look at your daily planner, the things I said I would do on Monday that I failed to do. Why did I fail to do them? And then you make a correction. But then I will ask you that, can you please, at the end of every month and at the end of every quarter, sit down and I want you to schedule on your calendars time for a personal monitoring and evaluation, and behave as if you're a company and do your M&E. And then at the end of every year, normally I run a personal monitoring and evaluation program in late January, so that people can evaluate the year that has gone and plan for the coming year in respect of their 5-year plan and their 15-year plan. People ask me, why do I do it in late January and not in December? And the answer is easy. Normally from mid-December, those who remember chemistry, we are like electrons on that outermost energy level. We are excited, we're in a very excitable state. The end of year parties, Christmas is coming, really a lot of things are happening. And so because of that, it's hard to get your mind properly focused on what has happened during the year. And then when Christmas comes and goes, suddenly a new year is coming, and then we get into a panic, I didn't do this, I didn't do the other. So I want you to get out of your state of panic in a point of acceptance that, okay, the year that went, I made certain mistakes, or I did very well in certain areas. Now I'm settled and I can actually plan. What I found with some people, when they've done very well, especially in finances, they've done very well that year in financial planning. They are so excited in December that they would spend more than they normally would spend. And this is a negative thing. So I need people at the end of January, when you have settled down from all that excitement, to now review the year in detail, including what happened in November and December. So I really encourage you to have these quarterly plans, and at the end of the year, late January, please do your annual monitoring and evaluation. I think that is what I had prepared for you as far as M&E. Next week, we can quickly go through it if you have any questions. But once again, I encourage you to continue tracking your cell phone usage, because that is a big letdown for many people. There is a grayscale that is available in phones of people who use Android phones. I no longer use an iPhone, but those who, so I don't know about what is in there. But in your Android phones, there is something called the grayscale. If you don't have it, go to Google Play and download the app, any app called the Grayscale app. It helps you to turn your phone into gray, so that it is less appealing for your brain to use it at times you don't want to use it. So that is in addition to your other phone disuse apps, like the phone tracker and any blockage apps that you are using. So that is what I have for you today. If there are any questions, please, you're welcome to ask, or any contributions. This has been the longest of all the sessions. The floor is open. You're welcome to unmute yourself. Okay, so if no one has something to share, Emma had something to say. Yes, Emma.
I'm sorry, I seem to be the only one.
No, it's really okay.
The deep work, the part just before procrastination, the sorting out. Yes, just a brief recap on that, please.
Okay, let me go to the slide. Let me know if I'm on the right slide. This one? Or this one? Am I on the right slide?
Yes, this one. Yes, this one, the deep work.
Okay, so deep work is a concept that I learned about that I found really interesting. So deep work means you pick up an item that you want to focus on. It may be So it's really nice to look through your wheel of life and make your plans, right? So you make your plan already. Now you pick up an item out of those plans that you want to focus on. Let me give an example. So I'm going to give you two types of examples. One of them, since we have some parents in this group, one of them is, let's say it's an item in your parenting. You've decided that you want to spend time with your children. So it is on your schedule for the day. So deep work in this sense will mean you're going to spend time with your child or your children away from anything else. So your phone is away from you. It is the only thing you're focusing on. You're not replying an email. You're not watching a TV program that is your TV program. You're not doing anything else except focusing on being with your child or with your children during that time. In other words, the whole of your being, the whole of your mind is focused just on that activity. If you're learning something, for instance, so if your plan, your to-do list, it is about learning something. Let's say, so for a student, it's learning a topic in a subject. During that time of deep work, that is the only thing that you're going to do. You're going to pick up that aspect of that topic and spend 30 minutes to 1 or 2 hours only doing that. In other words, you need to get up to a point where everything about your mind or everything is focusing only on that. So that is what the concept of deep work is, and actually has a very good scientific backing to it. It allows, because it allows the neurons in your brain to connect and focus specifically on what you're doing. And when you do it, then you're able to do it better. And after you're done with it, like I said, take some time off away from it to allow your brain to compartmentalize it and put it where it needs to be. Because there are many compartments of our brain. Your brain will decide if this is something that needs to go into long-term memory, unconscious memory, or what aspect of it should go where. So that is the advantage of deep work. Also, the advantage of deep work is that it ensures that the quality of work that you do is much higher than if you were focusing on multiple things or doing things for a very short time at each point. Let me give you an example. If your plan, if the activity that is planned is, let's say, improving your relationship with your parent, and you're a grown-up and your parents don't live with you, or you're in school and your parents are not at home. And so the activity is making a phone call to talk to your parent. But as you're talking to them, you're doing other things. So you're on the phone, oh, mommy, how are you doing? But in the meantime, you're doing other things. You're either dealing with the children, or you're cooking, or you're trying to watching news on TV or watching something else. You realize that you are not present for that discussion. So you're only going to discuss very surface things, and the conversation will end. You won't even remember what you talked about. But if you say, I'm going to talk to my mom for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and that is what I'm going to be focused on doing, you realize that the quality of discussion is going to be absolutely different. It's going to be a deeper discussion. You're going to hear the person more. They're going to hear you more. You're going to be more present in that discussion. And that discussion is going to form actually a step in improving the relationship that you are seeking to improve. Emma, does that throw some light on it?
Yes, it does.
Okay, yeah. So it's really just about practice. If you've not been doing it before, it may be a bit difficult to actually sit there for 1 hour and do nothing else except that one thing. But if you keep doing it over time, then it becomes easier. And you'll notice that we actually do deep work when we are doing those things that are in quadrant 4. You sit there on your phone and you are on social media and you are in it 100%. You finish and you know about people's lives. If they ask you, you could actually write a book on it. Or you're watching a movie, you are in it 100%. If someone tries to say something, you even beat them. You know, sometimes you even send kids to bed, or we make sure we are alone. You make sure everyone has gone away. Then you lock yourself and you sit down and you watch this movie or you read this novel. So actually, what we are doing in quadrant 4, we need to be doing in quadrant 2. That is what deep work is. I don't know if that throws some more light. Does it make it any better?
It does. My very, very, very last question.
Okay.
Please, by way of example, just give me an example of a filler task and a quick win, because I think I'm mixing them up a bit.
Okay. Did anyone understand the difference between a filler task? And let me go back to the slide. Okay. Between a quick win and a filler task. Paula, do you want to guess? Or Irene? Can you give us an example of a quick win and a filler task? Okay, so I'll just repeat it. So quick wins are really small tasks that have a big impact on the main tasks that you have set for the day or for the week. So the example I gave, but normally they take less, they are done within an hour. I gave the example of a person who wants to start investing, saving money for investing. So if that is on your to-do list for the week or for the day, a quick win would be to get a phone number of someone who is an expert in investing. That takes you less than 5 minutes to find that phone number if you didn't have it in your records. Another quick win would be to make this phone call or to write an email to this person, you know. So I write an email, dear Irene, I've been informed that you are an expert in investment. Can you please, I'm trying to do A, B, C, and D, and I'd really appreciate it if you got in touch with me and let me know what I should do. That is a quick win. It is something you have done that has contributed to your big plan for the week or for the day. A filler task, and I have a description there that I'll give it to you. It says, fill gaps with regular or necessary tasks that take 30 minutes or less. So there are some necessary tasks that you need to do. Maybe email somebody, you need to maybe send a group email to someone, or you need to make a certain phone call. It's not one of your wheel of life activities, but it's a phone call that you need to make that you can do within a short time. So there are small tasks. Usually they're items that you get out of your quadrant 3. There are usually items that fall in there. That quick email, or someone passed by your office or passed by your room and said they needed to talk to you, and you can quickly have that discussion within less than 30 minutes. So those are little tasks that they are actually called filler tasks. They are necessary, but they're not quadrant 2 type of tasks. Does that help, Emma? But like I said, when I send you the email for this week, I'm going to have a detailed section explaining what the different items that are within the planner. So I hope that will be helpful. But you can get in touch with me during the week also, and we can talk about it more if you're having trouble.
It helps a lot.
Okay, great. Okay, so if there's nothing else, thank you very much for being here today. I really enjoyed having you. And although we had to run through the time, I enjoyed the breakup sessions very much. We will probably use it next week again. Since most of you would like to do the root cause analysis, we will do that next week. There's a concept that we won't have time for, but I will let you know about it. It's called the life map. I also find that to be very helpful, especially when you're dealing with areas that you don't understand why you have the procrastination issues or you have inertia. It really helps. It's called the life map, and you can do it for different areas. Remind me, I'll share with you a write-up on it, and hopefully you can use it whenever you need to use it. So otherwise, thank you very much. Those who woke up earlier than they normally do, thank you. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and please don't forget, this is a habit builder. Let's continue doing it, and you'll get to a point where it comes naturally. I promise you that it will come a point when every time you're thinking, you're like, is this proactive? Is this reactive? What is my plan for today? What are my big wins? Am I doing things along the same path of my one big thing? It becomes automatic after some time, but we need to start getting the work done now. So thank you very much for joining in, and have a beautiful weekend. Bye. Oh, and one other thing, please, if you can, I would really appreciate it if you send me a testimonial of what your experience has been. You can send that by WhatsApp or send it to me by email. Okay.